All right, everyone, we'll go ahead and call to order. I deeply apologize for running a little late here this afternoon. I want to ensure that we have quorum. I believe we do. Thank you, Jared, for the thumbs up there. And we'll just move. Well, let's go ahead and do introductions really quickly around the table. And I'll go ahead and pass it over virtually after we're finished here in person. So, Steve, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, and then we'll go to Paula and me. Thanks.
I'm Steve Frick, the Commission Representative from Teller County.
Paula Levy, El Paso County.
And then we can go online. It looks like Commissioner Mitchell might be having some audio problems, so we'll try to, oh, maybe not. She's come off mute. While we go through that, Amy Smith.
Hi, Amy Smith and Fountain.
Thank you. Aaron Manzella, if I said that correctly.
Yes, you did. I'm Erin Marizella. I'm the Executive Director of Innovations in Aging, and I'm in El Paso County.
And Mary Duran.
Hi, everyone. Mary Duran. I'm in Paso County, and I work for Oak Street Health.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mitchell, can you hear us? We'll continue to diagnose, but that's everyone online.
Thank you, Jared. And just quickly on myself, I'm Dayton Romero, and I have the privilege of serving as chair for this commission. And I live here and reside in El Paso County. Okay. Melissa, I'm not sure if you also wanted to. Okay. Fantastic. We'll go and move right along to agenda approval, and we'll look for any recommended revisions, comments, discussion on the agenda. And if none, we'll look for a motion of approval on approval of the agenda as it is.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
I second.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Mary. Anyone opposed to approving agenda? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move right along to the approval of the minutes. And same thing, we'll look for any recommended revisions or discussion on last month's agenda, or sorry, meeting minutes. And if none, we will look for a motion of approval.
I move to approve them, Dayton.
I second.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Paula. Will anyone opposed to approving the meeting minutes? Hearing none. Great. We'll consider those meeting minutes approved from August. And so great to see folks in some of the seats here today in person. And I believe we do have some public comments. And with that said, I will look to whoever would like to come to the podium and introduce yourself, and please go ahead. And the public comment period, just as a reminder, is 3 minutes, and happy to do a little, happy to answer any questions as needed.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Joanna, and this is my husband Forrest, and we live in Colorado Springs next to the East Library. We've been there for 7 years, and I've almost gotten killed about a dozen times since I've lived there. I live with Alzheimer's disease, and I am aging very well in place. And but when I try to cross the street, I take my dogs for walks. We, both my husband and I do this every day. And it's the Sconto Circle West. So you can see that that's not it's a circle. You know what I'm saying? It's not a major thoroughfare. People are supposed to be inchworming along as they drive through there. So what the problem is people with dementia have a slower response time. And so although it's a very safe neighborhood and people are mostly very watchful and aware, I have a slow reaction time. So even though we are watching and responding, I have almost fallen and gotten hit. My dog's almost gotten hit, and it's a problem. I would like to have something indicating in the neighborhood, something similar to the signs that for people who have a deaf child that says slow deaf child, or whatever the signs are for someone who is vision impaired, that basically signals to the other people that are going through that area that they need to be aware that there is someone with cognitive impairment who is going to react slower, like I am now, because I want to stay in my home. And there's 70,000 of us in Colorado with dementia, and out of, there's 100,000, and 70,000 of us are actually aging in place in our homes. So that means we want to stay there safely. And the majority of that 70% live in the Springs, because we've got the bases, the military, and we've got the best dementia community on the planet. And so there's an incentive for us to stay safe, but we need something that is out there that's legitimate for us to be able to stay safe. And I understand that not everyone's going to want to call attention to the fact that they're living with something. So names don't need to put on there, but something that will be helpful to us. And it will also destigmatize what we're talking about here, which is a community of people living with dementia and those working in the field. Thank you. I can't believe I made 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you bringing this to our attention and sharing your story with us. We're in the midst of our strategic planning, and experiences like those is what keeps us informed in the direction that we're heading. And it is a 4-year plan. And we certainly are an ambitious group on what we could accomplish ahead. With that said, I want to go ahead and open it up to the other commissioners if you have any comments or questions.
Dayton, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Erin.
I would just like to thank you for coming, Joanna, and telling us about the way that you see transportation and the way that you're using it, because it's so important for us to speak up about our own experiences and let people know how we can make things better. So thank you so much for coming to meet with us. And if there's another venue where you would like to share your voice and share your experience, let us know how we can help you get connected with whoever you think needs to hear.
Well, and I want to thank you, Joanna, for being here and sharing that, and for knowing the statistics of how many people are living in Colorado and needing the awareness that so many of us don't pay attention to. And I think it's very deserving of conversation and attention, and hopefully we can do something for that. Thanks for being here.
This is Melissa, who works for the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging and is the admin for the Commission on Aging. And thank you again for coming and sharing that. We have at the Council of Governments, we actually have Drive Smart Colorado, which is a nonprofit that the Council of Governments has adopted under our auspices. And they are working on safe driving practices as well as pedestrian needs. And so I will be sharing this with that group. And there may be opportunities for you to remind them again too in the future as well. This is something that's happening right now where there's a large group of folks with Drive Smart Colorado trying to figure out traffic safety campaigns and how to raise awareness. But I also heard you talk about being able to put signs up in neighborhoods for people who would be interested in that. And I think that's a really good, also a very good recommendation for Drive Smart Colorado to hear about too. So thank you. And I do hope that you guys can stay for the meeting. We are working on adopting goals and objectives for the upcoming year. We have 4 goal areas that this group has kind of honed in on. You'll hear 2 more today, and we can all be thinking about what you've said and how it might apply to any of the goals and the objectives that we've been looking at as a commission. So I hope you can stay with us. But if you guys can't, we understand. So thank you.
I will echo that. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time. All right. Any other public comments? Okay. We'll go ahead and move right along here to item 5. It doesn't look like we have any action items today. So we'll move over to 6 in information items and membership committee. I'll look to you, Paula.
Mike. So I did do my homework as far as contacting current commissioners, asking about their interest in chair positions, and did not get much interest for various reasons. Actually did not get any interest for various reasons. And understandably so. People are new, people are in other positions that take a lot of their time and are spread thin. So I did my due diligence, but I don't know where we go from here.
Thank you, Paula, for doing your due diligence. Finding officers and discussing officer slates, I don't think is ever an easy job. Finding those who are willing and able and have the capacity to step up is a task. And I think we continue the conversation given the timeline we have ahead of us, and the executive committee could convene and kind of regroup and see if just kind of continuing the conversation. Paula, I guess a question for you and Amy, and I know Amy Mitchell is having a little bit of issues technologically, but as far as your officer roles as member, chair, and vice chair, are those also looking to be filled?
I will stay where I'm at. Steve is, I'll let Steve speak to himself. I did ask if Steve might be interested in co-chairing with me, but I'll let you speak for yourself. Yeah. So,
I might throw out an idea. And it could be further evaluated. We're still looking to hear from Amy on the vice chair role. But as far as just kind of an idea, I would love at least to get an interested existing commissioner in the chair role. And with that, I would be willing to serve another year as chair with that vice chair, with that next person alongside me in anticipation of becoming the chair. So I could make room, and I would, of course, be privileged and honored to continue in this role. Just would really look forward to someone who to work alongside and make for an easy transition for that next person who's moving into the role. So I think next steps related to the officer slate is that the executive committee will reconvene and kind of regroup and see, put the line back out there on who would be willing to sit alongside me. I know that's going to be tough. That's it. That's probably even harder than taking just the role in and on itself. But yeah, we'll put the line back out there on seeing who'd be willing and able to kind of sit alongside me and really build their confidence to take that role in the future and next year or 25. With that said, taking care of the officer slate, is there any other? Oh, Amy Mitchell, I see your hand up.
And it's interesting, the challenge has been she has not been able to hear us for some reason. So I don't know if this is a test or something to see if that, but she dropped off and then jumped back on, but I don't know if it's resolved yet. Oh, maybe. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yay.
All right, I'm on my cell phone for audio. I missed it all, but I am willing to stay as vice chair if you guys want me. And I know that the challenge to find somebody to step up to chair is tough. And I apologize, I'm not able to fill that position.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Paula. Really appreciate you both. And like I said, we'll go ahead and regroup in the executive committee, and I think we'll go ahead and make an assumption here. In the upcoming meetings, we will vote both of you in for another term. We'll get that on another agenda in the future. So thank you both again. 2 out of 3, not bad for the day. With all that said, on the officer stuff, is there any other updates related to new membership?
I don't have Amy. I don't have any. Melissa, did you have any inquiries? No. Steve and I are talking to Rotary in Woodland Park this Friday morning. So we'll see. I have other inquiries out there to talk to Kiwanis and Rotaries throughout the Pikes Peak region, but haven't got any firm dates confirmed yet. So we're going to still try to get out there and talk it up and see if we can't recruit more people.
And just so folks know, I bring up both the Commission on Aging and the Regional Advisory Council meetings at most of the meetings that I'm at on a regular basis, monthly. And even just today, I was over at Bear Creek long-term care community and actually talked to two caregivers who were in the room with me and mentioned the Commission on Aging as well as the RAC, honoring due respect for them as caregivers and what they're doing. But I also pitched it to their older adult who was with them that they might be interested too. So I do tell people all the time about our meetings here and encouraging people to think about it, and also trying to, hear what's important to them and, kind of where they're at. And then if I can find a way to mention, oh, well, this is what the RAC is working on or what the Commission on Aging is working on that might be in alignment with what, we just talked about. And so I am doing that all the time. So just know that. And I'm sad that it doesn't always end up with more members coming our way, but it is a very, very worthy and very easy to talk about concept. I mean, the Commission on Aging is wonderful and all the goals and things that we're working on right now, and the Regional Advisory Council has its purpose. And so just wanted to let people know that that's something that I'm always bringing up at all the places I go. So.
Yeah, and this is Amy, and I brought up the Commission on Aging at our last intergovernmental meeting in Park County with Fair Play, Alma, and Park County, and got no nibbles. But I will, as Melissa does, continue to bring it up in all the forums that we have to try to find some more people up here who want to be engaged. So thank you.
Lucy, did you have a comment?
Okay, good. Well, I'm in the right place. So, I'm a marketing person, but like, do you have a flyer? Is there a place that people can go if they're interested to know like job descriptions for what the Colorado Commission, like what the commitment is, what the expectations are, to find out if they're interested? Like, it's the best kept secret in Colorado Springs. I'll just say, we got to get the word out, and, flyers and publicity and stuff might help in some of those different networking things. So I don't know. I'm willing to help if you guys have flyers. I'm happy to distribute. So. Oh.
Thanks, Lucy.
And it's a lovely reminder, Lucy. I believe we've talked about flyers that we could all distribute. Not sure if those exist. Yeah, they do. Okay.
They're just not super fancy flyers. It's a one-pager that talks about both the RAC and the Commission on Aging. So it's not calling out one or the other. So, but we do have it. So, and if I can, yeah. So what we don't have is probably an announcement, potentially on our website that, calls out specifically what it would be to be a Commission on Aging member if there's a spot to squeak that in there. But yeah, and yes, we have a flyer that talks about the RAC and the Commission on Aging and the membership and what the purposes are. But so.
What are the other like the RAC? What are their mechanisms in which people express their interest?
So I think one of the ways, we have a very new RAC member sitting in the audience today who joined us. And part of how that happened, similar to what Amy Mitchell is doing up in Park County, it was brought up at the Monument City Council that, the RAC and the Commission on Aging were looking for members. And so then when I met with our fabulous Laura, here and told her about the differences between the Commission on Aging and RAC, and she went to the RAC. And then she had a cohort who ended up going to the Mobility Coordinating Committee. So it's just in that case, it was announcements were made at the PPACG board meeting. That information was shared, at a city council meeting in Monument by a PPACG board member, and it resulted in us getting Laura on the rack, but actually coming to Commission on Aging meetings. She's been to a couple of them so far because she's absorbing it all. So that's how that happened. And we have Erin with her hand up.
Go ahead, Erin.
So I am wondering if, and this is a really good point, whoever said that this is the best kept secret in the Tri-County area, because people who work in aging services, we get together all the time. We have 3 senior summits this year, maybe 4. We're going to do an age-friendly summit in November with innovations in aging. And I will commit to talking to the people I know who are organizing these things, and let's get the word out, because that is when people are coming together and they're excited about serving aging in our region. And the people who are doing that are effective at getting people together. So let's have conversations with, isn't there a senior summit in like 2 weeks? Isn't the Gazette senior?
Oh, yes, it's coming up.
Yeah, it's the expo on the 5th, I believe.
Yes. Can we get a table at the expo and some flyers explaining what we're doing and inviting people to join us?
So the Area Agency on Aging will be there and we will have flyers there. And if anyone else is going to be there, I will give you flyers to hand out if you have a table there. But we will be there, and it's possible that if anyone from the commission, we've done this before, if anyone from the commission does want to come, I can let Jody know that a commissioner would want to come and hang out at the table for an hour or 2. We had people show up at the Silver Key Senior Summit that happened not too long ago. And so we can have that happen again if people want, but.
Do you hand
So
out
yes.
flyers about the Commission on Aging?
I do, yes.
You
And I talk to
do?
people. Yep. And I talk to
Yes.
people. That's where I
Okay.
have the conversation where I'm, folks are concerned about, Medicare, or they're concerned about caregiving. And then I'll answer their questions, and then I will say, oh, by the way, if you're interested in getting a little bit more involved, we actually have 2 leadership councils. We have the Commission on Aging, we have the Regional Advisory Council, and we are always looking for people who want to help represent and help us guide direction in the future. I mean, that is my spiel right there. And so, yes, I am talking to people all the time. But people are busy, and I'm not, I don't necessarily have coffee with people enough probably to develop that really intimate connection and ask. But yeah, in terms of those senior summits, we are always there. And that is partly what we're doing there too, is talking about our RAC and Commission on Aging.
Are we, I know that the PPACG is not allowed to advertise. I think I'm saying that right. Like, marketing is not allowed within the framework by which we're funded by the government. Is that correct?
Yes, there are minor loopholes because we had some ARPA funding that came our way, but for the most part, yes, that's correct.
Would we be able to develop a LinkedIn page?
So
I'll do it.
Jared's coming to the podium.
Okay.
I grabbed the wrong keyboard. So Jared Verner, PIO for the Pikes Peak area, our Council of Governments, I should specify. So we do have a LinkedIn page on the PPACG side. I will say, I made the joke today with someone, with another social media person. I would make a joke about organic reach, but no one would get it.
I get it.
The idea being that unless you pay for it, no one sees it. And so, like, right now we're doing a paid campaign through some SHIP dollars that Melissa referenced, which again, it's very targeted to Medicare and those kinds of things. So like we can do it, but it's very targeted. At least from my experience, well, I know LinkedIn is a different crowd. I mean, I'm willing to try any idea. Also keep in mind that this is one of 7 committees within the PPACG umbrella. And I will say this is not the committee with the most vacancies.
So when you say that you have a LinkedIn page,
For the council of governments, I should specify.
it's for council governments. Yeah, so the Commission on Aging does not, though?
We
Specifically?
don't. At least I'm not aware of one. If one exists, that's news to me.
Dayton, what does the Colorado Commission on Aging do to get the word out? Do you guys have, and I know I'm like saying LinkedIn, but like, is there a email list, like a social media?
All state commissions are governor appointed. And just given my personal experience by recently being appointed to the Commission on Family Medicine, I was nominated and recommended to represent District 5, and I had to apply through their website.
All right,
the
let's just
state.
start appointing people. Who do we know?
No, I guess what I'm picking up in general, because I don't know kind of the bureaucracy of our commission going kind of on its own outside of PPACG, and I know there's some probably comms things to consider within that option. It sounds like we kind of need to regroup and figure out a membership strategy. So whether that be, distribute flyers in these places by this time. And I know we've kind of set like an internal goal of filling 3 vacant spots that are representative of these different geographic areas. But overall, I feel like whether it be social media, boots on the ground handing out flyers, or word of mouth, we should probably put pen to paper and be really intentional around how we're doing this so that we really take advantage of all these great ideas that we have. And also Jared and the AAA, the PPACG, just being an awesome resource for us. So how do we kind of leverage those strengths, those channels that we have in front of us? We as a commission, I feel like, need to be really intentional about how we want to go about it too.
I'm thinking that there could be some strategic marketing and messaging kind of after the first of the year that goes along with the goals and objectives that have come up. And, we've talked about this in terms of a membership strategy. When we've adopted those 4 goals and outcomes, that's where then we can be reaching out to individuals as well as hopefully older adults too, who will have interest and knowledge and background in those areas where we're adopting our kind of goals from. And that could be a little bit more of a hook, when we know that we are going to be interested in, transportation, we can be a little bit more strategic about trying to get a person sitting at the table who is going to have a transportation focus. We had a person present today during open comment about a concern about transportation and safety on the roads, so it doesn't mean that because a person comes and does open comment that we want to then recruit people in to become members of the Commission on Aging and do all kinds of work. I don't want to imply that per se, but I do want to, be able to say that when we come across conversations with folks and they're really passionate and interested and it's going to align with our goals and outcomes, hopefully that'll help a little bit in generating some interest. So, and I can look back on the flyer that I have and add that I think it says we meet monthly, but maybe there can be a little bit more of a elaboration around what meeting monthly looks like, to help people get a better feel for, this would be my commitment, this is a meeting that has a virtual opportunity. So I could dial in at home or I could come in person, it's a 2-hour meeting once a month, and so maybe that, just those little extra pieces there. But I think a bigger part, just from my own experience and talking with people, is, why would people be interested in this? And what, is the connection there. I try to, but maybe I scare people away when I talk about things being a leadership opportunity, and nobody wants to be feeling like they're going to have to be strong leaders. They just want to be a part of something. So maybe my language is a little too strong. I don't know. But again, hopefully we can utilize some opportunities with the goals and outcomes after the first of the year.
I love the idea of leveraging our goals and our focus areas. Melissa, I don't quite agree that we wait till the end of the year or next year because of where we're at today. And I think there is some mid steps that we could take before we fully lean into next year into a recruitment strategy. But maybe in the meantime, we could just some action items come to mind. If we can get the flyers out to the commissioners and we all commit that we will distribute at least 5 to 10 flyers each, I think that is something tangible we could all take away and say, hey, we have this printed document in front of us. We're going to get it out or distribute to our distro list that we might be a part of. That's one action item. Another to me, and Jared, I'll look to you to give us some insight on this, is if we can put out a post, at least 2 posts between now and the end of the year, asking folks or getting interest in joining the commission and where to go through the PPACG social media outlets.
We should be able to do that. I think it's probably a better conversation that you're gonna have with the executive committee or offline, just
Great.
to specify what exactly the process looks like. So, okay, you're interested in joining. How do you join? Would be my next question. So,
yep,
whether that's an online form or emailing someone.
Yep, we could figure out the language that we're going to post in the post together, whether it be reach out to Paula or Melissa or whoever. But we certainly could iron out some of those details. But high level, let's all agree to distributing 5 to 10 flyers a piece as commissioners, and getting at least 2 posts via social media before the end of the year.
Do you mind if I jump in?
No,
just
please.
From past experience.
Sure.
So one of our committees, Community Advisory Committee, just went through a process. They had 3 at-large seats in their roster to fill. We did an initial 30-day application window. For 3 at-large seats, we had 2 applications, I believe. They redid the 30-day application, and we ended up with 14. I will say most of the applications that came through was because of outreach by the membership subcommittee of 3 people. So I would also kind of lean into the membership taking on the role of recruitment, as opposed to news release and public notice in the Gazette really didn't move the needle. It was the personal outreach that helped.
Not surprised. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate that insight. So it sounds like we have at least a couple of steps to walk out of this in terms of recruitment. And I feel like we at least have our goals in front of us that we could also use as talking points. They're not fully fleshed out. I hope we make some headway today on that front, but we at least know our 4 goals that we could speak to. And to me, it leads into who our networks are, in the caregiving world, in the social inclusion world, or health and wellness, transportation, housing. Each of these goals have their own ecosystems and people who we might be able to tap into, even if it's just an overarching message to, an executive director of an organization to distribute to their staff as a development opportunity. So. All right. Sorry, Paula. Any other membership updates, discussion?
Nope. Well, Lucy, just step forward and you too can join us at this table. Oh, okay. Yeah. Send her to me or Melissa and we can get her an application And yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
All right. Baby steps. We'll move over to 6B in Policy Committee. And Amy Mitchell, if you don't mind that we lean on you to give any insights from CCA. And I know, is Kathy on the line? I don't see Kathy on the line. So Amy, if you don't mind taking it away for at least the CCA.
I do not mind. The CCA meeting, they were focusing on filling subcommittee slots at the last meeting, and working on who is going to help with the heavy lifting of pushing legislation. I volunteered to help work with the community-based services subcommittee, because that's where I think we can reach seniors directly at their need. And so any policy ideas or concerns that come our way, I could share at the CCA. And we've had multiple legislators who are going to step in and brainstorm with us at some of our meetings to figure out, what we believe is needed. The other thing that came out of it is discussion on funding for our AAAs. And Rich Morrow, he runs CCA, but is also with Dr. Cobb, Arapahoe County and Park County, we jointly wrote a letter to Colorado Counties, Inc., which is our lobby organization, asking them to put in their priority policy. We review policy every year this fall for CCI, and asked that funding for our AAAs and services for our seniors be put as a priority in CCI policy. And our liaison for that committee was enthusiastic in CCI, and so we will be discussing it further, and hopefully that can be added as a priority that CCI pulls out every time we are discussing legislation and senior needs.
Amy, this is Melissa. Can you remind me what CCI stands for?
Colorado Counties, Inc.
That's right. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Amy. Anyone have any questions or comments for Amy on her insights that she has for CCA? Seeing none. I don't have too much from the Colorado Commission on Aging, other than they'll actually be in town this week, I believe, on Friday. And I don't know if that's an open meeting. It is an open meeting, so more details to be learned or shared after this. Or go ahead, Melissa, if you have some of the details on that.
Yeah, so we do have Kathy Cirillo Smith, who is a member of the Colorado Commission on Aging. So she will be there officially. I will be going to that meeting for the majority of the day. It starts at 9, it goes till 4. And, anyone here is welcome to pop in at any given time. They have not actually, that I haven't seen, that they've published an actual agenda in terms of, it is out now. And was that on their website? Okay, so they do have an actual agenda on their website now to kind of see what the topics are going to be for the day. If there's certain things that show up that you're more interested in and want to hear. So, again, it's at the Hyatt over off of Garden of the Gods is where it's happening. And again, I will be there most of the day. I do have a 1 o'clock meeting, so I'll be missing a 1 o'clock time frame, but I plan on being there most of the day, and maybe I'll see other people there too. So, and the centenarian celebration is at 11:30. So that's an exciting part that they do when they get together, to see who from And I think they'll do it for the whole state, right? Not just our region. Yeah. So it could be, hopefully we'll have a couple folks from Colorado Springs, but we'll see. We'll see who comes up.
Thank you, Melissa. Certainly would encourage everyone and anyone to kind of make it. I know, and this is probably not the most political thing to say, but a lot of these state groups tend to be Denver metro heavy. So having a good turnout here in Colorado Springs, I think is definitely a good thing. So with that said, I'll pass it over to you, Jared, for the PPACG Legislative Committee. Thank you.
That works. Thank you. And Commissioner Mitchell, I know she was on it for a portion of it, probably longer than I was. I was only able to stay on for the first half hour, but the PPACG Legislative Committee met this past Monday. The biggest focus is just prepping for the 2024 legislative session. The committee reviewed a legislative trifold, which is essentially outlining our themes, our priorities. Some things specific to aging is that we've modified a little bit just to go some more flexibility on relocating for seniors who are looking to relocate, whether that's downsizing or whether that's relocating to a lower altitude for medical reasons. We changed a little bit of language on that with the homestead tax exemption, but also keeping in mind that that could play into Proposition HH, which is on the ballot this fall. My understanding, there was a lot of discussion in the legislative committee regarding Prop HH, specifically on that. And then the legislative committee, and by that way, the board of directors is also looking at a time to bring together our state delegation to be able to come and meet in person and just outline what we would like to see for upcoming bills, what they are planning to run. Right now, there's a heavy interim schedule going on with state committees at the moment. We are specifically looking at some non-aging things specific to air quality and ozone, and specific to transportation and specifically transportation planning region boundaries, which I never thought in this job I would learn so much about TPRs and MPOs and everything else that goes into it. But that's how funding is distributed and how projects are done at the state level. So it's incredibly important that we're trying to make sure that we're keeping an eye on. So that's outside of the aging world, but I just want to let you know of some of the things that is occupying the focus at the board level.
And
Sure,
I'll jump in real quick just to put a little bit more context. We did talk about Proposition HH and the homestead exemption portion of that, and so that's why we did make the change to the trifold. Well, they did. I'm just crashing their meeting, but we will take up with a focus on multiple levels, trying to get homestead exemption increased and get it solidified as a single standalone bill, which was the focus and the attempts multiple times in the past, once the election is over and we know where we stand. And then future regarding potential transportation bills and just our need to think more locally on transportation. Some of this thought that was discussed was more of a statewide, but we determined that local, to get to local services, shopping and needs of people who would utilize transportation is the better focus. So that's about where we're at.
And thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. The reason I was only on for the half hour, I was filling in for our executive, Andy Gunning. There is some statewide discussion around affordable housing, which obviously will impact not just seniors, but everybody. And I will, without getting into specifics, it was a really good discussion, having a mixture of local government, county government. We had the CML, which was helping organize this, Colorado Municipal League, along with CCI, the Colorado Counties Incorporated. But we had home builders there. We were one of 3 councils of governments represented there. We had other areas like ski areas who were obviously have been facing affordable housing struggles for years because of the nature of that work. And I think trying to look at that before the 2024 session starts. So we'll keep you updated. Just more discussion at that point, but that's where I was, and then Andy's in Washington this week, actually at the federal level. So a lot going on.
I don't know if this fits, but I'm going to squeeze it in there since I feel like it fits with the legislative context where the Digital Equity Act has passed, is in play, and there will be a open public comment period at the beginning of 24 because the state's deadline has been pushed out into next year. NTIA has recommended that we push it out, or Colorado, in addition to many other states, push it out. And what the Digital Equity Act focuses on is ensuring that internet access is feasible. People have web-enabled devices and the digital literacy to be able to use those devices. And so a lot of planning is being done right now, and there will be an opportunity down the road to comment on that. Really quickly, Jared, on the housing conversation, has there been any conversation around Proposition 123 on affordable housing programs? Is that what you're talking about?
No, this really, I mean, this is obviously not just a issue now. It's been an issue that's been building for a long time. I would say this mostly came out of Senate Bill 213, which ultimately failed this past session, and specifically being able to show, especially at the state level, that local governments, counties and municipalities, and the councils of governments, where appropriate, are already tackling this at the local level. And really, is it the state's role to really do this? Is it a combination of, can the state actually help, or are they just getting in the way? Because I think we saw with the land use bill, zoning is a very local project that is really done at the local level, and that land use bill really was taking a state level approach to zoning, which is, I think, why a lot of municipalities specifically came out in such force against it, is because it was the state coming in to really start doing what has always been a local decision. Colorado Springs just went through Plans COS, Manitou Springs just went through a massive planning and zoning process. And so I think this is mainly, this group is coming together to say, listen, these are some things that are already being done. This is the ways that if the states can help us in these areas, then let's have that conversation. We heard from a really good discussion in Lake County and Leadville about how they consolidate all their permits into one big meeting, essentially. And the home builder said, listen, that consolidates a 5-year planning process from conception to shovel into 1 year. And that saves 4 years in paying engineers and lawyers to review stuff. It gets it all done in 1 year. So that was, it's just those kinds of projects where there's already some things, what can be adapted maybe to our region, in keeping in mind, and Dr. Cog, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, they hosted this meeting on Monday, and they were right. Housing is not really something that councils of governments really get involved with. However, it's really becoming, because of commuting patterns, you live in one place and you work in another. So that really involves the regional component of it. Councils of governments, we are volunteer, we are a membership driven organization. So we will take on the roles as our members ask us to be. But the problem is, sometimes when the state tells councils of governments, again, we're a volunteer organization, there is nothing keeping some of these organizations from saying peace and walking out the door. It's meant to be a collaborative. It's meant to be we're working together to solve common problems. And housing is kind of becoming one of those, and it's something we're diving into, but also keep in mind that, transportation planning, that's dictated by federal statute on the MPO level. And we saw a lot of bills, especially that land use bill, really coming into play. It's like it is assigning MPOs roles that are not our, like, it's not transportation, but has a very specific thing from USDOT. So it's one of those things where we are learning as we go, where councils of governments are seem to be where that might reside. But keeping in mind that we don't have any enforcement ability. We cannot tell a municipality or county what to do. And so it puts us in a weird position. So we're looking at it. Dr. Cog has hired a consultant. They're either on board or will be by the end of the week, they said, to really conduct that assessment and see what can we do. I will say from the legislative committee on Monday that met, construction defect reform is something that I saw Mayor Mobilade mention that in his State of the City last week, construction defect reform, which I think if that can go through, that would be a huge change, because right now there were no permits for condominiums in El Paso County last year. And that's where that construction defect bill has really it hasn't slowed it down. It has stopped condominium construction. And so if we can get that industry back up, that opens up that first house purchase for a lot of families, rather than going to the town hall or single home detached. So there's a lot of momentum on that. That was in our draft themes document. But to hear that Colorado Springs seems to be working on that, along with Boulder, Aurora, Denver, and I believe they said Fort Collins or Lakewood, another northern Colorado community. But that would be something I think would really move the needle in affordable housing. So did that answer your question, or did I just dance around it?
It works for me.
Okay,
Chair.
sorry.
No, I appreciate it. It's super insightful. Amy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just jump in for one more quick comment. At the county level and the municipality level, there is a lot of education work being done to educate our legislators on what we can do at the local level to work on housing without mandates coming from the state. With regard to Proposition 123, we have had a lot of education sessions. We had education at our last intergovernmental meeting in Park County to learn all of the intricacies of 123 and how it might fit into a very rural county where we have only 5 wastewater treatment systems in the whole county, and really no water. But we are looking at it and how we can partner with us and Fair Play and Alma to be able to reach some of those requirements of a 3% increase in housing per year for 3 years if we do go for it, because we could not reach that level only in the county. We don't have enough infrastructure. But if we partner with the municipalities who do have the wastewater treatment and water, we could meet those goals and utilize some of that money. So that's going on across the state at the county and municipal level within the counties. So and they are looking at where the greatest need is, with seniors also on that list to see what is the most critical for the time. So it's happening kind of behind the scenes, but we're getting prepped for next year legislative session.
Thank you, Amy. Super insightful. That is really interesting on how that bill, Prop 123, is being kind of digested, because I know housing is the talk of the town across the state. And so with that kind of going through and going to resource so much, interfacing with DOH and other entities is going to be a fascinating thing to see unravel. Okay. We'll just keep on chugging along here in the agenda. And Jared, I'll give you the floor back for 6C on board items from PPACG.
Thank you, sir. Relatively brief on the board side, just because the board met last Wednesday. We didn't have any aging specific topics on the agenda last week. There's a new transportation commissioner for our region who was able to come and address the board and meet the board. And then a lot of the discussion was focused on a couple different things, air quality and ozone. So that's where our director is right now. Not specific on ozone, but he's trying to arrange some meetings. Just trying to help and address with the EPA that we're all on the same page on increasing air quality and making it better. But there are some things that are specific to the Intermountain West when it comes to ozone readings that negatively impacts us. And so the best example I use is Gothic and Gunnison County, just north of Mount Crested Butte. Beautiful area. I've been there before. There's not a whole lot in there. You know, the baseline ozone readings are about 65. 71 is when you start hitting non-attainment issues. So in a place like Gothic, naturally occurring ozone is at 65 parts per billion, and no one lives there. As compared to, say, a city like Nashville, which is lower in elevation, their baselines are closer to 40 before anything ever happens. And so that's kind of what we're trying to work with the EPA and try to say, hey, listen, you're going to be hurting us if you keep these regulations in place. So that was a big part of the discussion. Another big part of the discussion was on military planning update, especially with Space Command. But some of the requirements coming out of DoD through congressional requirements on energy resiliency, which was actually fairly interesting. I would encourage people to listen on that. And I'll just remind everyone, the next board of directors meeting will take place in Fairplay next week, or not next week, next month, October 11th at the administration building in Fairplay. And it is supposed to be a packed agenda. So.
Thank you, Jared. Any insight on where the November board meeting will be?
November board meeting will be right back here.
Got
So they only go on the road twice a year. So July was Teller County and Woodland Park, and now November is Park County and Fairplay.
Got it. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll move over to 6D and chair report. Not too much to report from my end. Just kind of keeping things in front of us related to our internal and our internal goals as a commission, and then also looking forward to today's conversation related to our goals and objectives, and perhaps we could get to a place of even detailing some tactics within those. So with that said, keep in mind, and the reason why I asked about November's board meeting is because ideally we have this the strategic plan in a presentable place for the PPACG board for November's meeting. Of course, that's not the ultimate motivator. I don't think we need to rush anything just for a presentation. We want to ensure that this is a quality plan and a feasible and sustainable plan with all that. So looking forward to today's discussion. And I believe, Jared, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the review of goals and objectives, I think it's a good segue into that. Oh, Melissa got it. Fantastic. So just all right. So really quickly, in terms of our internal goals, if you wouldn't mind scrolling all the way up to the top again, Melissa, thank you. So yeah, these are just like really high level sort of internal ops goals for us as a commission to keep in mind and keep in front of us as we navigate this. It does span across our committees, whether it be recruitment efforts or us just in general to have something to reference as we make progress or don't make progress, whatever the case may be. It's important that we know kind of what we're looking at internally and infrastructurally for the commission. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and scroll down and just quickly do a recap of what we solidified last time around, and that was with goal 1, We have for goal 1, enhancing accessible and affordable healthcare. And after last month's conversation, we all agreed upon the objective 2 with some really good conversation and debate at times of fostering partnerships with healthcare providers to ensure comprehensive and age-appropriate care options, targeting an increase of the percentage or numeric value that we all still need to kind of detail out, and we'll get there, but this is all done in collaborative efforts within the next 3 years. This is aligning with the COSOA, which is 4 years, correct? So we'll need to revise that if we can, please, if we could just make a note of that. And then going into goal 2, which is creating age-friendly housing and transportation. We have some baseline statistics, and again, just as a refresher, we were looking at some key statistics related to the goal that we're pulling from the COSOA. We all had an agreement around the objective 3, which we had at the time some different objectives to discuss and choose from under that goal. And objective 3 is to advocate for age-friendly infrastructure and policies that support aging in place, aiming to achieve plug numeric value. And here, adoption of age-friendly policies by year 4. Again, certainly needing to detail out that numeric value as well as some of the tactics of getting us there. So that's the recap of the first 2 goals. And today we are looking at goal 3 and 4 and going to have some conversation around the 3 objectives or none of the objectives. We're certainly, those are just kind of placeholders or places of reference that we could adopt as is or modify as we see fit as a group, or have a combination of them. So this is really up to how we want to mold this as a commission. So we'll kick off the conversation by talking about goal 3, which is promoting social engagement and inclusion. We have some statistics to reference in front of us as we have this conversation, and we all have the objectives in front of us. So I'll open the floor up and see if anyone has any opening remarks on which objective that they feel we should adopt, or anything outside of those objectives that needs to be included within.
And I'll start it off. I think C is more up our alley because 1 and 2 are more service driven. That's going to take detail work, manage collaborations with other entities. But I think 3 will encompass objectives 1 and 2 by an overarching expansion. So I would go for 3.
Sorry, Mary, that was objective 3. Is that the one that you'd said?
Yeah, I'm driving. Sorry if that was choppy. 3.
You're okay.
I'll make a comment. Community spaces are important and they do have to be accessible to older folks, which I guess I'm in that community, but we need to have a reason for them to be able to go there. I mean, I think having a community space, we've got community centers throughout Park County, and so we have to act regionally because we have no choice. Seniors, they don't want to drive real far distances. So I think it's more to have those community spaces, but also promote some kind of activity to attract them to go there or to get them out of the house. So I think we almost need a hybrid, but I'm not sure. We've talked about 4-H in Park County and what 4-H can do to lend a youth and a senior cooperative thing. And that might be something, because 4-H a lot of times is regional as well, though I know 4-H isn't widespread. Hold on. Okay, is that better? Yikes.
Yes.
It reset. Even though I have Starlink, my internet is always unstable. So I think we need to have some kind of hybrid, because having the space for seniors is good, but we need to have a reason for them and what it is we would do to attract them out of the house. That's all.
I echo what you say, Amy. I like the intergenerational connections I always have.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
I-
much to learn from seniors. It's
Yep.
just warms my heart. I wish my grandma was still around, and as an old person, I could still learn from her.
Right, right. I'm all about intergenerational connection, so I like number 2. I like them all though, so but I'm partial to having the generations mingle, just because I promote that with my work, so I like that.
This is Erin. Sorry to just jump in. But I keep reading over these and I'm having a hard time picking, because I think that they're all wonderful and they all kind of point to the same end. But the one that I think aligns the best with what innovations in aging will be doing is objective number 2. So I think the intergenerational connections and volunteer opportunities just kind of aligns with what we heard when we were building our strategic plan too.
Creating an event that's going to actually create space. I feel like objective 3 will be done with.
Yeah, it's a good point, Aaron and Lucy. Everyone really. It sounds like not one of these objectives really comes at it in a comprehensive way, and there needs to be some revision to the objective that we'll actually adopt. I personally, I even think about revising the goal, because I think about social engagement, inclusion, and connectedness. I feel like us uh, being a proponent or a catalyst of connectedness, which is kind of an overarching theme for a lot of these, is um, well needed. And I am also bringing my professional life into this conversation, and that is bridging the digital divide. I feel like technology is a big, big part of the solution. It's not the silver bullet by any means. I certainly see that the connection with the human to human, peer to peer connections is needed in order to facilitate technology connections. If that's the direction, or if that's what we think when we think of people being connected. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Is it sounds like we need a combination of these things, and I also think about the sustainability of a lot of these objectives and these goals. So as we, and I don't know why I'm going into tactics again, I keep on doing that. I even did it during our last conversation, but as we think about these things, we also think about kind of the sustainability of these objectives that we're adopting, of how can we ensure that these things are feasible and sustainable. I don't know how we expand social and recreational programs. I do see us fostering and advocating in objective 2 and 3, though. Those seem a little bit more of what our role could be.
Dayton, I'm glad you said that, because as I think about these objectives, I was the chair of the Age-Friendly 1.0 Social Connectedness, and these 3 goals were basically the same that our domain with that Age-Friendly realm had. And it was very, very hard to count these achievable, because there's so many different agencies, organizations that have events and programs, and it was hard to categorize all of them and then make that like a check mark that we pointed people to how to build intergenerational programs, right? And so I'm thinking about us as a commission and the amount of reach we have and leverage we have, and I think it's going to be very hard to count this as a success and to measure it, like you had mentioned, because I was trying to do that with a team of people from the library and the senior centers and Silver Key, and we found ourselves at a place of stalemate because we didn't know where to turn or how to actually make it impact when there's, you know, our counties are so large and there's so much going on. And so how do you tie that all in and create collaboration when it's so broad? And so I think this maybe muddles the water in the conversation a little bit, but I do agree that reining in on some of these objectives to have a higher approach of how we can connect the dots without actually knowing we can't be on the ground level offering services, offering programs, but we can leverage them and expand awareness. That helps make sense.
Yeah, and I have one more comment. Possibly it could be, as Mary said, bringing groups together like 4-H, like Girl Scouts, like Boy Scouts, other groups, maybe even, you know, sports teams, anything that could provide some cooperation and just make the reality of the need known to some of these other groups, and see if we could foster some kind of connection between like senior centers or senior coalitions and those groups, and even the libraries. And then communication to the seniors is where it's all going to come down to, for them to be able to utilize the connections we make. They're going to have to know about it. So it is a really big quagmire.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that the objective is not quite up here. And we might need to hit the drawing board. So we lift a little bit higher, and we align a little bit more whenever it comes to connectedness. I'm looking at those statistics in front of us related to the CASOA and community values seniors. El Paso being the lowest among Park and Teller and El Paso. Second being good sense of community. That to me looks pretty good. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, Melissa, but a good sense of community. It's looking like, let's hold strong there, or there's always room for improvement. And then opportunities to build work skills. That is the standout in the numbers to me. And what does that look like? And how does that dot connect to social connectedness, engagement, and inclusion? I think there's something to that. I know I ended the last meeting by talking about looking at the age-friendly world and older adult services and older adults in an asset-based way, where we find opportunities and solutions that add to economic vitality of communities while giving a sense of identity and a sense of purpose and a sense of inclusion. So I those are just some thoughts that come to mind as I'm looking at some of these data points, and also I'm thinking of some of these objectives in sort of like a hybrid, as Amy had said. So since we're here, I'll recommend next steps are that I or the executive committee hits the drawing board on the objectives again, and we send those out well, how can we do this? Yeah, we're going to have to hit the drawing board again on these objectives. Unless anyone is bold enough to say we're just going to do a combination of two or whatever, but my recommendation is that we revise and come back with some alternative objectives for the group. And we could do that electronically, I think. Of course, if we're happy to jump on a call if we need to have further dialogue, but I'm thinking we could send out some alternatives electronically and talk over with the executive committee. That'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, Dayton, let me throw one more thing out. We've had these conversations about youth and seniors, to where we enlist seniors to teach youth skills like cooking skills, sewing skills, house cleaning skills, some of the standard basics that you need to know to, sew a button back on a shirt. And so maybe we could build that work skill, flip it around. If you have a job, you feel needed, but if you can teach somebody else skills, you also feel needed. And so that could maybe bridge that gap that you're sensing. I feel that's rubbing you a little bit. Maybe we could look at it from that perspective. So we have more to talk about.
And Mr. Chair, if I can interject real quick, just you piqued my antennas a little bit. So and this is getting into open meeting laws a little bit. So just be aware, you're more than welcome to send anything out to the committee, but if you're asking for feedback in a group, or if you have a call and if there's 3 or more in there, just to be aware that triggers Colorado open meeting laws. And we would need to be able to provide 24-hour notice to the public on that.
Thank you for keeping me in line, Jared.
Yep.
We'll certainly abide.
I don't want to get into the same trouble as some of our folks in the State House are dealing with. So
I've heard about that. Thank you, Jared. All right, we'll go and move over to goal 4. I just want to hear from folks. Are we all okay with what I've recommended, or are we, Steve, you okay with that? Okay. Erin?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Dayton. I think part of the reason that I kind of like them all is because there's nothing that really jumps out. So I think it's a good idea to go back.
Great. Thank you. And by all means, if it's really up to any one of us if we want to take a crack at revising the objective and sending it over our way and whatever we need to do. But I'll take the lead on that. All right, moving over to goal 4 and strengthening caregiver support and services. Certainly seeing some challenges with caregiving across the board and these statistics that we're looking to move the needle on. And we have the objectives in front of us, and I'll open the floor on whoever wants to kick it off.
I'll kick it off. Sorry, guys. In looking at this, especially in the rural El Paso County, which is huge, rural Teller and Park, possibly there's a way that we can help somebody form legislation. And it's going to have to have a fiscal note, which is a challenge, to find some money to get current caregivers, in-home caregivers, a way to have them enticed to go into the farther reaches of their areas of service by some additional money to make them want to go out to, let's say, Peyton, or go out to Cripple Creek, or go up to Park County at all. and so that's one way that I think could help the rural areas. The cities, I'm not sure, but that's just one thing that I thought could maybe be a heavy lift, but bear fruit.
And then that would tie in, that would possibly be a tactic under objective 1, enhancing support systems and resources for caregivers. So I think that's a plug for objective 1.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Amy. Very valuable insight. I'll say Steve Peterschmidt shared his thoughts, which I failed to mention during the last goal, but I will during this one. He had said that he loves objective 1. He says he thinks this could be a broad effort to support communities across multiple settings and multiple definitions of caregiver. To him, it sounds like it includes respite care, so maybe combine number 1 and 3. And on objective 2, his comment was he feels like this is an interim step and but not a solution. So just kind of reinforcing what Amy has said, that around enhancing support systems in objective 1. I do it all the time.
Is it work?
Oh,
This is dangerous. In your objective, are you targeting paid caregivers or family caregivers?
that's not a stupid question. That's a great question.
Because I think your objectives are going to be very different between those two categories and what those needs are for that particular population.
Great question. And the challenge of training family care, the challenge of training family caregivers is getting them care for their person so that they can get the training. You can hold sessions for training caregivers, and their struggle is, how can I get there? How can I make this training that I need so desperately when I don't have care for my person for a couple hours at home so that I can get the training. So there's a double-edged sword. This community is full of knowledge on dementia training, on all kinds of caregiver training, and the caregivers are caught with who cares for my person while I go get training on how to better care for my person.
Yeah, Paula, that's where respite comes in so hugely, to where even, I mean, family caregivers, they need a break also. I mean, they need
Absolutely.
training, but they need time away so they're rejuvenated to be able to continue the difficult work. So maybe, maybe respite and support of, financial support of paid caregivers is one thing to get them to reach farther, or maybe expand their resources. Because in looking at the CASOA, it looks like provide care is needed across the board. But then focus and divide it up, and then focus on paid caregivers and volunteer/family.
Yep, and then you've got the issue with paid caregivers in facility settings that are so stressed out and so overworked and so, because it's hard to staff facilities with caregivers because they're so short-staffed that they are just thrown into their position without adequate training. And so then they go on break and they don't come back because of their job is so hard and they haven't been trained. And this facility doesn't want to take the time or spend the money to train them well so that they can do their jobs better. It's just, it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And that's why there's shortages all over everywhere, all over the nation on caregiver shortages, professional caregiver shortages, because they're so short that they don't take the time to train them right, to do their job right, so that they don't stay a week because they don't know how to do their job. And so they give up, they walk away.
Lucy, to your question, which is a great one, I think, is I go to what Steve said, in that there's multiple definitions of caregiver across multiple settings. And with that said, I would be interested in what the challenges are within those communities so that we are localizing and hearing them and meeting them where they're at. So I think that is a big pathway to our tactics of increasing these numbers or decreasing whatever the metrics positively are. So to me, it's a tactic, and I feel like if we adopt a combination of objective 1 and objective 3, the tactics need to acknowledge the different definitions of caregivers and what is being most leaned upon within those different communities across the 3 counties, and how do we support those caregivers, because the caregivers might be completely different in Park than they are in El Paso than Teller, and we're all different on how we're interpreting caregivers and how we might even interpret support. So I think our tactics need to be really intentional about understanding the challenges and who the caregivers are, and then leaning into moving the needle on those statistics. Barry, Aaron, you have any comments, questions?
I think it was very well said, and I don't have anything to add to the comments that have been offered already.
I agree. I do need to hop off to get my son from daycare, so I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting now. Sorry, y'all.
I like the way that you phrased what you just said.
And in alignment, but one of the challenges in Park County is if somebody has surgery and they need a little bit of pre-op therapy to be able to get on their feet to go back home, they can't get any in-home therapy. No one will come up here. But I always thought it would be really cool if we could have like a Ronald McDonald House for seniors around hospitals, to where a senior could go from their surgery to this place for 5 days of therapy before they're just sent home. And that would be just huge for the challenges that many seniors face up here.
Thank you, Amy. And I want to give the floor to Steve. Thanks, Steve.
I'm hesitating because I'm not really sure exactly what to say. I like everything that Amy has said, and it's certainly true in my experience in Teller County. And I was fascinated by your question because that's the antithesis of a stupid question. Because when I read that objective, the idea of paid caregivers never entered my mind. All I thought about when I read that objective was somebody struggling in home to provide care for somebody in their home and how difficult and challenging that is. And if we could find a way to entice more people, flipping to the other side, to have an incentive to come to Teller or to come to Park, because it's a huge problem. And this respite issue is also significant. There's been some budget cuts in PPACG, and there's less money being provided for respite care. At least that's what I'm being told at the Teller Senior Coalition. So Kathy, our executive director, has gone out to Easter Seals and secured some funding, but the Easter Seal requirements for certifying somebody as a caregiver so that they can provide their money is really tough. And so for a long time, Kathy hasn't wanted to do it, just because it's incredibly stringent and almost prohibitive in some ways, but we're working it and we're able to fill the stopgap, at least to a certain degree. But I think those two challenges, if we could do some things to address the difficulty in getting paid caregivers to come to Park, come to Teller or rural areas of El Paso, and then on the other side, do more to provide support, because what Paula just said, I'd like to be able to go get my training. I'll give you an example. We've got a late, and it doesn't really fit this, but it hits the time difficulty. When you say 2 hours. So 2 hours is incredibly unrealistic in Teller County. You need a half a day. And I would say at least, or certainly a half a day. We've got a client who I've driven a number of times from where she lives in Lake George to dialysis treatment in Colorado Springs, driving out from Divide, which is where our office is, picking her up, taking her to the treatment place in Colorado Springs, and then coming back, that's 90 miles. That's the challenge. If you're setting up opportunities for people who provide care in home, you know, where are you going to do it? How far away is it? What's the time commitment? And how do we help people to make that happen? So I'm rambling a little bit, but I like the combination of objective 1 and 3, and I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think we can get there.
So this is Melissa. And, you know, I think the good part about this conversation is I think people have a lot of ideas of where the gaps are, and there's a lot of ideas about possible solutions for those gaps. And to me, that fits into objective 1, enhancing the support systems and resources for caregivers. It's that just kind of, you know, fortunately, but maybe unfortunately, it's kind of very open. You know, support systems could be caregiver training. It could be a respite program. You know, it's really open. So if the commission adopted one, then they can kind of throw some of those ideas that have just been generated today as actual tactics and activities to actually work on. So objective 1 might be it. And then as I foresee this group, you know, spending a couple of meetings at the beginning of the year, really digging more into, you know, what are the gaps for caregivers, and then figuring out what that tactic might be to really sink teeth into to do some stuff around it. But I see objective 1 really standing out pretty strongly here.
I completely agree, Melissa. Resources for caregivers, respite is a resource. And as long as we're all really intentional about integrating, you know, objective 2 and 3 as tactics in 1, which is broad enough, just really reiterating what Melissa said, I would recommend that we move forward with objective 1, and with that said, kind of incorporating those other 2 objectives as potential tactics for us to consider to achieve goal 4 and objective 1.
I second that motion.
Agree. Like it.
Yep, I think that's great.
Aaron, any final comments? Thank you, Amy, by the way.
No, again, I think it was very well stated. I loved what Melissa said, and I agree.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're well on our way, team. Boy, these are hefty goals and objectives, but I think next ahead of us is tactics, and us just developing a framework around what is tactics and what are some examples. So I think, again, we could hit the drawing board in the executive committee and get some tactics, or at least some examples of tactics under the objectives, so that we could kind of orient ourselves and then begin to kind of come up with some ideas around those. And in addition to that, we'll certainly revise goal 3 to see if we could get to a place where we'll all feel pretty good about it. All right, we'll close that one out and go back to the agenda. I appreciate everyone's thoughts and ideas on this. We've made a lot of headway since Pat Urban joined us last year. So we are,
She'd be proud.
she would be proud. Thank you. Great, guys. So any discussion items? I know there's none on the agenda, but want to make sure we give an opportunity to any of us who's in the group. Yeah, a chance to any discussion items or announcements. We'll just combine those.
The Alzheimer's Walk is coming up in a couple weeks. Amy Smith just texted and said she will have a table at the walk and would like flyers. I will have a table at the walk and will have and would like some flyers also. So
I will give a quick plug that AARP Colorado is doing a statewide tour, and they will be in Colorado Springs tomorrow afternoon from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Southeast Armed Services YMCA off of Jet Wing. So they'll be there, and if you have a chance to visit, I certainly encourage you all to do it. I'll be there. So might be also a good venue to pass out some flyers. Any other member announcements or discussion items? Hearing none. And we do see our meeting schedule ahead of us. A lot of exciting things going on. And I believe Jared and Melissa do a phenomenal job on keeping items for next meeting for us. And we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon.